My second symphony was written in 1962 and was completed in just under 3 months. I mention the speed, since it is, I suppose, rather a short time in which to produce a large work, because it is a habit with me to carry the general notion of a work around with me for a longish while. During this period, I make copious notes and convince myself that I am working out the details. But, in fact, suddenly one day I sit down to my work in earnest, and then something quite different and quite formed emerges, something in no way related to the sketches I have imagined myself to be making. It is then only a matter of sitting relentlessly at my desk till the job is done. I find it particularly hard to talk about the second symphony, as it is a piece with deep emotional meanings for me, and was written at a time of distressing personal difficulty. None of the movements was begun or ended in the same place, or even in the same country. And I had to hold on to the piece with all my will in order to keep it emotionally in hand. Nevertheless, the technical means adopted were extremely stringent, all 3 movements being very strictly based on a mutual tone row. The first movement is a complex symphonic structure which begins in a subdued and mysterious manner, rises to great climaxes, and resolves itself in a strange and tranquil questing between E-flat major and E major. The original vague concept that had filled my mind had been a sort of magic, a setting up of a curious world, filled with conflicting strands of poetry and drama. What emerged, finally, seems to fulfill these ideas. But this is the composer speaking. What the listener will feel is, to me, important and unknown. The second movement had always been conceived as a rather terrifying picture of huge and superhuman creatures hunting down ordinary mortal man. There is a large and grotesque stepping and a general atmosphere of moving to a definitive and brassy victory. The third and last movement is, as often with me, a slow movement, the informing notion being visionary. It's as though one were to hover between the world above and the one below, with a plangent lyricism typifying man questing in strange places and finding himself baffled and overwhelmed. The movement ends with a cool escape into the unknown. Having finished the work, I was at some pains to find a clue for the listener reading the program note at the first performance in Cheltenham, and, to my complete satisfaction, found the answer in a series of quotations from Wordsworth. These have been much disapproved of, some critics saying that the work takes its inspiration from English literature, others claiming that the poetic phrases are misleading. I confess myself unabashed and feel that the poetic headings to each movement are a good and explanatory preparation to the work. The work is dedicated to my late wife, Anna. I will now read the Wordsworth quotations. First movement. Dust as we are, the immortal spirit grows like harmony and music. There is a dark, inscrutable workmanship that reconciles discordant elements. Second movement. The grim shape towered up between me and the stars, and still, for so it seemed, with purpose of its own and measured motion like a living thing, strode after me. Last movement. Visionary power attends the motions of the viewless winds, embodied in the mystery of words. Here then is the performance of my second symphony. This third symphony of mine haunted me for a long while as a work which had to be in one movement, and when finally I sat down to it, the score was complete in just over 3 weeks during 1964. It is, insofar as such a thing can be truly said of any work of mine, a strictly formal piece. The ideas presented at the beginning are diatonic and non-serial, though they also contain a tone row. And the argument of the work concerns itself with the gradual transformation of all the stated material until, at the end, it all reappears but restated in serial terms. This seems to me a novel and valid symphonic concept, posing many new and searching problems, only to be resolved by the merging of diatonic and serial methods. The work falls into numerous sections, all of them closely interwoven, and in which one may, if one wishes, imagine a series of brief but closely argued separate movements. For me, the work is nevertheless one long and formally presented series of ideas, all of which find their meaning only as they resolve themselves eventually into their new and serial forms. Having delivered myself of all this unwonted technical verbiage, I insist that the piece is, nevertheless, to be heard only as music. That is to say, only as expressive and emotionally meaningful sound. If I don't explain what emotions were involved, this is because I never do. Now I shall invite you to listen to the performance of my third symphony.